This is an interesting one. This one probably should have been more obvious than it was, to be honest. I've seen both these movies. I can't say that very often when it comes to a versus. Still means I won't probably chime in because this is your segment, so we'll just let you take it away. This is quite an epic battle, to say the least. You have two, titans when it comes to action films, and they're facing off today. So we're going to find out what happens when the Book of Eli battles I Am Legend. AJ, take it away.
Yeah, I just happened to come across this DVD, and these are honestly two that I didn't even think of to put together, and I was like, there's one. I mean, yeah, it probably would have made sense to do I Am Legend with something like the Omega Man, but, while it's here, why not? And, given how this is easier, okay?
Less DVDs to carry.
Well, there's that, and it's just the Omega Man is obviously it's the same story, in most regards, and it's where, even, The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price you could throw in here too, but I Am Legend takes such a different approach, and such that modern approach, that, it's a little, I know I just did Cyrano de Bergerac and fucking Roxanne, but, so I can't really make that argument, but, yes, I liked the sound of this one when I saw these together, so that's what was happening. And I think we're gonna go ahead and Book of Eli's on the left side, but I think we're gonna go in chronological order, and we'll do I Am Legend first. And so I Am Legend actually has an interesting beginning where we open up to this news footage, and Emma Thompson, in an odd cameo, is telling us that they found the cure for cancer. Cut to 3 years later, and almost everyone on the entire Earth has been wiped out completely, except for Will Smith, his dog, and some vampires. They're not actually called vampires, but they have sharp fangs, and they burn in the sun. So, and if bitten, you turn into one. So they're fucking vampires. And I really like this opening scene where it really shows it gives you that real alone factor where he's in Times Square by himself and he just has his rifle, and there are deer, these very, very datedly animated deer are prancing around on the New York streets. And they are attacked by some equally poorly animated lions. But the scene is kind of so cool, you don't really care about how poorly animated they are. And that really kind of immediately throws you in this world, that image of the entire abandoned New York City with his car just driving right up the road with nothing around it. And it just really... And it's also kind of begs the question of... It was almost kind of... A lot of people like to give Will Smith shit that he doesn't really take a lot of risks as a producer and as an actor. Regardless of what you think, this was a very interesting time for his company and Warner Brothers and all that to say, so how good is Will Smith's star power? Let's put him in a movie with nothing else and see what happens. For a while. But then, because I remember that teaser trailer that I think just showed the clip of, he was doing his scientist stuff, and he was doing his pull-ups, shirtless, because he's Will Smith. And then his watch goes off, and then he goes into lockdown, and then he and his dog are laying in the bathtub while he's got his giant-ass rifle, and we just hear these evil sounds coming from outside the house. And that's pretty much all we had to go on for a little bit. And that in itself is a very intriguing premise, and a very, very good kind of trailer type thing. And that proves to us, can Will Smith and some creatures and a dog make a movie worth seeing for an hour and 40 minutes? And yes, this movie does have a lot of people that aren't a fan. But I wasn't one of those people. I kind of really liked this when I saw it, especially in that, it was the midnight showing, where I think half the people there, the theater was full from wall to wall, and we were in the biggest theater, and this was in our theater, so it's a lot of fucking people.
Right.
I don't know how many were there because it was the premiere of the Dark Knight trailer.
Yep.
But but they all stayed and watched the movie, so it couldn't have been too much. And there's just so much intensity in this movie, with just having mainly one character in it. Before I go on, this opening scene, it is worth noting that this movie was made in 2007. Fast forward, we're in 2016 now. And we're in Times Square. Obviously, it's in, like, this future. That's very... Everything's just, wiped out. But all the stuff is still there in Times Square. Most of it. And we can still see some advertisements behind, like, Wicked and stuff like that. And the Broadway shows and all that. And then there's one particular little banner right before we see the title of the movie. Do you remember what that banner was?
I do not. Off the top of my head.
It was the Batman logo with a Superman
That's
logo
right!
over it.
Yes!
And everybody, seeing this movie, having just seen the trailer, the first full-length trailer for The Dark Knight, were like, oh my god, is Warner Brothers hinting at something? 9 years later, yes, actually.
My god.
So that's an interesting little thing. I don't know if it was the intention to say, yeah, you're getting this at some point. Especially since The Dark Knight was about to come out, like, 7 months later. But it's an interesting thing to be in there that's kind of, it almost makes the future portrayed in I Am Legend now a bit more real.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I mean, I know, like, the existence of one movie makes a dystopian future more realistic, but still though. But yeah, apart from the intensity that Will Smith brings to his performance, before I go into that, I want to mainly talk about just all the dread looming over this movie. If you live home alone, this is basically how I feel. Like, I always think back to this movie when I'm alone at night. And that is, as soon as the sun goes down, everything goes into fucking lockdown, and you're just like, whatever's happening outside is not going to get fucking in here.
It's like The Purge.
Yeah. In that moment when, the sun will be up and everything will be fine, and you hear his watch go off, and you just know just this horrible thing is foreboding, and it's like, you want to make sure you get every single lock and get into the absolute most confined place, and the fact that you can hear it all outside is a really terrifying moment in the movie. And it's just, I remember the first time I saw the movie that night at that midnight showing, back when midnight showings were still at midnight. And that moment just cut right into me, and I was like, oh, please God, no. It's that moment when he gets caught in the trap, and it catches him, and it hangs him upside down to the point that he cannot get down, and he is really far above the road, and he is stuck there. And that's when his watch alarm goes off to say that the sun will be going down and all that shit is coming out of the darkness. Moments like that are really, really what make this movie for me. There's really something truly terrifying in this movie. I don't think it gets enough credit for. But then, to counter that a little bit, we're not quite sure. I remember just feeling the confusion and the uncomfortableness in regards to the mannequins. Full theater, I don't think anybody knew if the mannequin stuff was supposed to be funny or sad, or both. But it basically succeeds in both. Because it's kind of like, if it's supposed to be funny, I feel kind of stupid for it making me sad, but at the same time, if it's supposed to be sad, I feel bad for laughing at it. It's really hard to say, because it really shows just how far brought down the loneliness has brought him. Because this guy was like a lieutenant colonel and all that, and he was this, tough guy with a family and all that, and now he's just this broken guy who has his dog that talks to mannequins, and to a point to where he's not even sure if they're starting to come to life or not, because it has been so long since he's talked to a real person. That his mind is starting to convince him that the mannequins might be real people, to the point that he actually wanders around by himself, trying to work up the courage to talk to the female mannequin.
It's so heartbreaking,
and
too.
It's like I said, you really don't know how to register it, but he kind of he plays it in such a fine line kind of way, where it's like, you don't know if it's funny or sad, but I think it's kind of intentionally a little bit of both.
Right.
Well, a little bit. It's a little funny. It's really fucking sad. In both an emotional way and a, oh my god, he's pathetic way. But at the same time, you know he's been stranded on a deserted Earth for 3 years with nobody but a dog and the creatures that want to eat him alive. Not a lot of conversation with those guys. And then because there's the sad moment where after the dog has died and he becomes desperate for the mannequin to come to life and talk to him, and he just like starts weeping and just says, just please say something, just anything. But then there's scenes where it's a little over the top, where I think maybe this got laughs in the theater for sure. The scene where Fred gets out, where they appear to have set a trap with Fred, the mannequin, and he throws a holy shit fit and starts interrogating Fred from a distance, asking him if he's real or not. And eventually he comes to the decision of, I'm just going to shoot Fred down. And just in a bit of dismay, as if he's killed an old friend, with total disappointment of everything involved, he just does that delivery of, "Damn it, Fred!" It's really a hard thing to figure out what way you're supposed to take it. But like I said, though, I'm pretty sure that's intentional, so it's actually done really well. It's probably worth noting before I go on that the director is Francis Lawrence, who went on. He was unknown at this point in time, but he went on to do Water for Elephants and the last 2 Hunger Games movies. A dude with an interesting career, to say the least.
Oh yeah.
No, he's really, really well with this, and also Water for Elephants is a movie I really like, also, so that helps. That's really, really well made. And so obviously talking about heartbreaking stuff, another thing that's really hard to take is his relationship with the dog. Such dog owners obviously will understand this as well, and that is the idea of, it's one thing to be attached to a dog. Like I even read that Will Smith got so attached to the actual dog that he actually tried to adopt it from the owner, but the owner was like, "That's my dog." But Will Smith actually really tried to get the dog for himself. Because there was such a kind of an emotional attachment made while they were making this. And that shows with they're seriously like partners in this. Like, it's basically like he has another person there when the dog is around. To the point that the empty passenger seat when the dog is gone is like the worst thing in the world. And now they do all their morning routines together and everything. Like he makes her eat her vegetables, and they both get on their own treadmills, and they're just partners in this whole thing. We see her as a puppy in the flashback scene when he first has to take her, so she's been around that long. And then there are the moments when she gets distracted and she runs off, and of course it's into the darkness. And obviously there's the really sad moment where we kind of hear him say, like, it's getting close to sundown, and not only that, but they're in a totally dark place where these things could be hiding. And he really needs to go get the dog, because that's the only thing he has. Like, it is worth it going into the darkness if it's to get the dog back so he can still have his partner with him. And there's just that really sad moment where he's going farther into the darkness, but realize he almost contemplates abandoning her, and he's saying under his breath, like, "I'm sorry, but I gotta go. I have to get out of here. If you're not coming when I call your name, there's nothing I can do about it." That's a really, really intense scene, too. And then, of course, the time comes when the dog is attacked. And we know it's going to change. And there's the moment where it would have been one thing. It would have been one thing if it was the old Yeller ending. When he was just like, "I'm sorry, Sam," But the way he does it is so heartbreaking in itself. Because he's there. He wants to be there for Sam's absolute last moments.
Right.
So he's going to let her change before he kills her. And the whole holding her and comforting her until this happens, and then hugging her to death when she's starting to change. For people who say that Will Smith is not a risk taker and these movies kind of take it the easy way, this movie went into a lot of directions that are really, really fucking tough. I know the ending gets a lot of hate. We'll talk about that in a minute. But one of the things I did want to talk about was once he finally does come across people, the mother and her child. And This is when the movie kind of finally finds kind of a light thing. Things that are supposed to be funny and don't leave us wondering if we're quite sure in regards to the mannequins, for instance. So there are the moments where he wakes up and the kid is watching Shrek, which of course we know watching movies is what's been a lot of what he does, because he goes to the video store and that's where the mannequins are. And this is when we learn that he's apparently taken Shrek many, many times, to the point that he knows all the words. And it's just this nice moment where we see this guy that's been so intense and lonely and sad, and just all the things you can think of that would be in this situation, just kind of nonchalantly saying the words to Shrek along with the movie, and then just looking at the people and saying, I like Shrek. And it's kind of but then, you know, there's the stuff in there that's also, even when he's angry, it's still kind of funny, like when she cooks the bacon, and he gets really, really angry, and we think it's because of the dog is gone and his family's gone and everybody's dead, and he just says, I was saving that bacon. Well, of course he's angry about all that stuff we learn in the next scene, but still, he's very upset about the bacon. That's kind of funny in itself. But then there's times where I'm not totally sure when he's playing he's trying to explain to her who Bob Marley is, because for some reason she doesn't know. And he starts singing I Shot the Sheriff in a high-pitched voice, and you're like, okay, Robert Neville has gone away for a little bit, and we're looking at Will Smith. This is very, very much Will Smith coming out of the character now.
Very much so.
After he's been in it for so long in this movie. But it's okay, because he can get back into it. It's forgivable. Now, I know the ending gets a lot of shit, because apparently it is different than... it's different than the book's ending, and there was a happy ending involving... you know, saving everything and all that. It kind of seemed like a bit of a cop-out, that it just kind of took the I'm gonna go out in a blaze of glory ending, when really it didn't seem all that necessary for him to do that. Well, they put it in enough of a context to where maybe, but there were other ways around, as seen in like alternate endings and stuff like that. But apparently test audiences didn't like the happy ending, which is interesting for a test audience to do. That's
not normal.
Yeah, test audiences are getting a little hipster in 2007, weren't they?
Oh boy.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it seems a little, like maybe they didn't have to go that route, obviously. And I know a lot of people were pissed off about, them changing the ending of the book, which would have been, I didn't read the book, but I read what the ending was, and that would have been a very, kind of a cool ending. But, you know, I'm still fine with it, you know. One of the other endings probably would have been better, but I don't actively hate it or anything. It's not like one of those, I'm gonna turn off iMudge 10 minutes before it ends, so I don't have to see that fucking ending. It's not like that or anything. But it's, you know, it's fine. The ending, I mean. So yeah, I know this movie actually has a lot of people that didn't care for it. I remember specifically, when the movie ended, when I saw it in theaters, the dude behind me, all I heard, the ending happened, and then the credits came up, and then I just heard the guy behind me go, well, that was lame. And no, I really liked it, and I still really like it. I've seen it probably 4 or 5 times now. And yeah, another thing I think pisses a lot of people off is I understand that the title of the movie changes with the endings. Like, what the title means changes in regards to which ending is which. Apparently a lot of people didn't like that either, which I can understand. But no, I really like the movie. It has a lot of suspense in it, and a lot of really, really intense moments, a lot of really emotional moments that all fit together really well. And Smith's performance really, really carries this from beginning to end. Even if Will Smith himself kind of breaks out every now and then from this super, super serious character. So yeah, I like it a lot. However, our other movie is The Book of Eli, which came out in January of 2010. And I saw it a couple of times, actually. We saw it when it came out, and then one time while you were working, I came in and watched it again to make sure I fully got it. And it's the Hughes brothers, who I love so much. They did Menace to Society, and From Hell, and Dead Presidents. All these movies I really love. And they bring us not one of them broke off by themselves and did Broken City. That's not good. Stay together, guys. And then you make greatness. And sure enough, we have this opening of we're not for sure his name is Eli, but that's how he's labeled, so we go with it.
Right.
And we see him, and he has camouflaged himself in this very desolate, futuristic nothingness. And we just have this hairless cat just kind of creeping around. And then we have the shot of him doing the arrow that goes through the shit. I don't know if that's ash or snow or what. But it's... and we see that he has this hunting lifestyle, and he cleans himself with KFC moist towelettes and shit. And he, too, is in a world basically all his own. It's basically like Clint Eastwood in the Dollars trilogy stuck in the Mad Max world. Is basically who Eli is. And he's apparently trained in all kinds of fucking combat, to where he can just slice and dice people at a moment's notice, and always can sense when people are around, and it's just a machine, really. Almost seeming like to an unreal extent. And the movie is, it kind of got criticism for this. The movie is really brutal. On the back, when you look at the rating, it says rated R for some brutal violence. It's like, fuck the sum. Do you realize there's 5 decapitations in this movie? And that's just decapitations. We're not talking about the other severed limbs that happen, and the face smashings, and the dicing, and the shootings, and the... this movie's brutal as fuck. Where were you on that MPA? You're usually the oversensitive ones. What the fuck happened? But anyway, he's transporting this book to we don't know where. He's just on his journey. He eventually comes across people who try to rob him, who get their asses cut up. There's the one moment where it's like, you would think it's brutal, and, excessive, but it's actually almost seems like it's in a merciless way. After he's already stabbed the guy, or done something to the guy that's mortal, and he's killed everybody else, and then this one wounded guy is left, and he just stabs him really slowly. And it's like, it seems brutal and excessive, but at the same time, it was almost like a mercy killing. Like, he was just kind of, it was like that was the easiest way to do it for him. It's a very interesting character, and naturally he comes across people. For instance, I think he's just credited as the engineer, Tom Waits.
Yep.
Oh my god. It's like you see this movie, you see Denzel walking, you see Denzel being badass, and you see the brown tint in the movie, and you see the awesome, just kind of, this is one of the better representations I've seen of the post-apocalyptic future thing. It's a really cool movie to just look at, and you're watching this and you're like, oh my god, how can this movie possibly get any more badass? Holy fuck, it's Tom Waits! You're like, holy shit, this movie just reached a peak, and we're only 10 minutes in. But no, this movie keeps on rocking the rest of the way. It's 2 hours of pure awesomeness. And like I said, not only do I love that, just that brown kind of look it's got to it, but then how they contrast it towards the end, when they're like in the water, and suddenly the skies are like blue. Just the look of the movie is so cool. I love it a lot. And on top of the technical aspects of it, on top of all this cool imagery, an Atticus Ross score.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
This movie's so fucking awesome.
It really is.
And I haven't even gotten to Gary Oldman yet. Oh my god, the villain in this movie is an over-the-top Gary Oldman. And not over the top like fucking The Fifth Element, or not even Stansfield from Leon, really. When we first see him, he's sitting behind his desk. He's like, I rule this fucking place. All the bitches are mine and stuff like that. And he's getting there, and the guy's bringing books, and he's like, yes, this is what I want. You guys are awesome. I'm gonna pay you, and you can go get drunk and stuff like that. He's like, it's Gary Oldman looking normal. He looks like Commissioner Gordon without the facial hair. And then his response after he tells the guys they've done well is to say, alright, go get slammed and go get some pussy. And that's when I realize, holy shit, he's almost going back to Drexel from True Romance.
Yeah.
That's the Gary Oldman I want to see. If you were going to make an over-the-top Gary Oldman villain in this movie, if he was going to channel any other performance he's already done, I fucking love that it's Drexel. It's not a lot there. Like, he's not acting, black or anything. But when he says, go get slammed and go get some pussy, a little bit of the old Drexel came out in him. Just a little bit. And that's weird because it's one of those characters you kind of see him never going back to. Because, you always see him, going from character to character. That's what he's most famous for. But that's one that was just really like where the hell did that come from performance. And just a little bit of it came out here, and Carnegie is his name. It's like, I love it. I love it so much. This movie could not get fucking better if it tried. I know you can probably already tell there's probably already a winner here, but I'm going to keep going anyway.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I really like I Am Legend a lot. I really do. But the Book of Eli is so cool. Okay, yeah. There is a moment where it just kind of stops dead, and that is the introduction of Mila Kunis. You gotta have the character that comes in, and it's like a little apprentice and shit. I know. Be kind of a bit of a, oh no, the guys are gonna get me, I need saved. Yeah, I know, it's in there. I mean, she does fine with what she does, but it's a character that kind of slows the movie down. This movie could have been an hour and a half of nothing but badass awesomeness, but it's 2 hours of badass awesomeness and Mila Kunis. I should specify her character. It's nothing that she does is wrong. And the way they kind of mix up the way the action scenes are, number one, keeps from redundancy, which is really important in a movie with a lot of action in it. But it's every other action scene seems to be done in a different way. Because there's stuff where it's like, there's the one moment where it's very, there's a few references to A Clockwork Orange in this. So I'm going to assume this isn't a coincidence. Number one, Malcolm McDowell shows up at the end to say hello. I think there's a Clockwork Orange poster in the movie somewhere.
I think so.
And then there is always, I got this vibe even when I saw it in the trailer, so it's interesting if it's an actual reference. The very first fight scene, you think it's going to be this over-the-top thing where he fucks everybody up. He does indeed fuck everybody up, but it's done from a distance from the side in silhouette. Kind of like the first beating scene in A Clockwork Orange. And I thought that was a really cool way to do that scene without... It's awesome and badass without feeling too over the top because of the way it's shot. Without being overly edited and cutting and stuff like that. But then there's another big action scene that comes, where it's the first shootout with Gary Oldman's guys. And this one is really, fast and heavily edited and a lot of this and stuff like that. But it's a one-time thing, it's fine, and it fits the scene that it's in. And then we move on, and then there's, like a kind of car chase thing going on, which in itself is its own kind of thing. But then we have the action scene at the house, which is totally different from the other action scenes we've seen. It's another shootout, but in a totally different fashion, where it's shot as if, there's gotta be a lot of trick takes in here, but it's made to look like it's all in one shot. Mm. And that starts with this amazing moment when Denzel throws the bomb outside, and they're not quite sure what it is, so Ray Stevenson picks it up. And then they throw it and the bomb goes off, and the camera pans through the smoke. The screen is full of smoke, and then as it gets through to the end of it and the smoke dissipates, we just see limbs dropping from the sky. And then it goes into the shootout, and then the camera moves and goes inside, through the window and inside the house. And then we see the shootout from inside, and then the camera keeps moving without cutting, as it goes back and forth from what perspective we're seeing the shootout from. When they're in the house with Michael Gambon and his wife, and they have like this whole array of guns in their basement or hidden away and stuff like that. And that's a really, really cool scene. Which takes us to the inevitable scene, where Oldman's one of those characters that's kind of sat behind his desk all the time. He's like, you do this and you do that and stuff like that. And then finally the moment comes where Oldman just straight up puts a bullet in him. Just like that. And you kind of realize that this is such a good villain, his character is. He takes the book that he needs and he leaves. It's a really, really great thing. And there's, but I missed the fight in the bar too. When the camera's kind of spinning around while he's doing it. And I just love how it's so brutal and graphic, but the way it's shot is from such a distance, it doesn't feel it feels excessive, but not enough to the point to where it's a fault. You're just like, he's capable of this. When he's fighting the dudes, and he's got, like, machetes, and as he's fighting the dudes, you just see heads start to fly out of the commotion. Now that we've talked about all this, it's probably worth talking about the last 10 or 15 minutes or so. And this is either when people fall in love with the movie completely, or they get pissed off. Because a lot of people don't like the fact that the whole movie seems incredibly unbelievable when the twist is revealed. Personally, I kind of love the twist. And I do feel like they throw enough... Yeah, there's some unexplainable stuff in there. But I feel like there's enough thrown in there to clue you in throughout the movie that kind of justifies it a little bit. Yes, we've seen him fight off these people and can see people coming from a mile away, and he's been on his journey and stuff like that. And yes, surely if you're watching this video, you already know by now. After all this stuff, we get to the very end and realize the whole time the dude's been fucking blind. And that final fuck you to Oldman where the book's in Braille and nobody can read it but Eli. And he's got the whole thing memorized and can just recite it to Malcolm McDowell, who is going to make it. And I think it's actually so obvious to a point, I keep forgetting that it's also kind of a twist that the book is the Bible. Like I'm always under the impression people already know that, but I keep forgetting technically that's a twist too. But I think most people know that going in. So anyway, I know people have like done the math and read up on it and stuff and say like apparently if you were to actually transcribe the Bible handwriting, it would take 66 days or something, which obviously Eli would not survive after being shot, because he does eventually die from the wound after he has recited the entire Bible to Malcolm McDowell. So that's unlikely. Okay, fine. And then there's the whole idea of, it was kind of a cheat to make him blind when we see him do all stuff. But, like I said, they throw enough stuff in there to where I'm finding it. Like, the idea, it seems so obvious, too. Like, that's how you know it's done well, when you watch it back again, and it's almost like, why didn't I figure that out? It's not like they just threw it in there at the very end, just to say, there's a twist in this. There's the moments like when the most painfully obvious one is when, he's just kind of walking, and he's saying, I've been walking for 30 years, and I'm just walking, and she's like, well, how do you even know where you're going? And he says, I walk by faith, not by sight. It's right fucking there. There's the moment where he can smell everybody coming, like all of his other senses are heightened, and that's how he, fucks people up and all that. There's a couple of moments in there that you kind of really have to look for, like the moment when, I could be off, but to me it looks like it. I don't know. And I'm sure Denzel surely would take all this stuff in mind and put it into his performance, but there's a couple of times in the movie, but one time that stands out is the time when she's reaching in his backpack while he's sleeping to get the book, and he catches her, and he starts talking to her about why she shouldn't do that and stuff like that. He's kind of looking at her while he's talking to her, but it also somewhat kind of looks like he's not looking at her. Like he's kind of missing her face by like an inch or so. I wouldn't put it past Denzel to do something like that, because obviously Denzel is, fucking Denzel. Yeah. He's the actor. He's the actor of actors. And a lot of critics apparently a lot of critics lump this in with guilty pleasure. Like a lot of people do like it. They just don't think it's particularly great. I do think it's particularly great, as you can see.
Obviously.
And I just love the idea of taking the post-apocalyptic thing and making it basically like a Western, just in the post-apocalyptic world. And I thought they handled that really well. Like I said, you have Denzel in here and Gary Oldman and these really good... Jennifer Beals is even good in this, as Oldman's wife, who is also blind, which is also kind of a giveaway. But just the look of it, the sound of it, the whole badassery of it. The action scenes are so well done, and I just love the way, like, every action scene is different in the way it's shot. Just to liven things up and make everything, just to keep everything exciting all the time, even when it does have those slow areas where it's just him and Mila Kunis, just in a cave, or in a cell, or in something. But no, all the stuff around it makes up for those slow spots for sure, and it's just a fucking badass, awesome movie that I love a lot. If I didn't know ahead of time, it would not have surprised me whatsoever that it came from the awesome, badass minds of the Hughes brothers. So, I wonder which one I'm going to choose. I don't know.
After all that, he chooses I Am Legend. Just to throw everyone off.
Yeah, so, yes, I prefer the Book of Eli, but I do like I think I like I Am Legend a lot more than probably most people I know. But the Book of Eli is a whole other monster. It's awesome.
There you go.
Awesome.
Yes.
Alright, we're done here.
So it's another edition of Versus, and next week your cryptic comment, why do we even need to say it? Civil War. So that's coming next week. Continue to watch the segments here on the podcast network. We're officially, as of today, 3 years old. So yes, we're getting closer and closer to relevancy. So yeah, there you go. Thanks everyone for watching videos, whether you watch for a minute or for multiple hours. We've got a lot of content this week. We've got AJ's movie reviews. The 45-minute long review of Mother's Day is on there, so check that out. And yesterday we did our second Halloween Horror Nights 26 podcast on The Exorcist. We've got Payback coming later tonight. We've got Raw coming tomorrow, and Wednesday Wrestling Podcast 9:30. You know the Wrestling Podcast, the pay-per-views and Raw will be at 11:30 as well. So stay tuned. More Halloween Horror Nights news coming when we get it. And continue to watch the segments here on the podcast network. Thank you guys and girls out there for watching. AJ, any parting words?
That's it.